we're now going to write some code in Excel VBA. The first thing we need is a developer tab up the top here, developer, and I'll show you how to put it on. Well, rather, I'll show you how to take it off for the moment. So we go to File and then Options, and then we need to go to the Customize toolbar, and in there you can see the developer tab. And so I can uncheck it. If I uncheck it, and then you can see that it's disappeared from the top. I'll put it back on again. Options, customize ribbon, and then we need to check the developer, and then you can see it reappears. That process will be slightly different for other versions of Excel. We start off by going to File Options, but it's slightly different for Excel 2007, for example. So you could probably Google that would be the best if you do have another version. So what we're going to do is to write some code, and one way of doing it is to write that within a button. There are other methods of writing VBA code, but I prefer this one, especially for learning. So if we go to the developer tab, and you'll see the insert set of insert controls here, so I click on that. Now notice there's not this insert menu, which is confusing, so choose this one here. So it's the insert, and then it's this second set of controls here, which is ActiveX controls rather than the form controls. These are rather old-fashioned, Excel 95. They don't have much use at all, really. So we click on this one here, the ActiveX control, put it up quite near the top left. We click and drag a button there, and then I can double click on that, and then I can write my code within this window. I'll explain what all these bits and pieces are, but mainly it's the sub and end sub, which is sort of like a compartment of code. It's an area that we can place our code in, if you like. So let me just do that. I'm going to type the word range, and then parentheses. I think I'll use the left arrow, and because you'd be using that quite a bit, and then I can use the left arrow again and type A1, and A1, it can be capital A1 or small a, and then I'll just click here after the range A1, and then put the full stop, and then type V, and then you'll see value is appearing. Now there's a few ways I could go about, but for the moment, if I double click on that, value, by the way, is a property. And then if I can click on equals, now I'm going to type some text in here, so I type simple, for example, and then we're almost ready to go to write our code. So what I'll do is take the design off. Now when you have the design on, you can move the button around, you can reshape the button and resize it, I should say, and so on. But it's probably a good idea if you do make the Excel window as small as possible, and then so you can see the VBE, Visual Basic Editor, simultaneously. But anyway, back to what I was doing here. I was typing this in. Now if I now click away from here, if I click down here, watch what happens to the range. Range becomes capitalized. So I do, that's because it's a keyword, so I do suggest that you type small letters all the time, and then it'll capitalize it for you. It's very nice from Excel. And it will, you will ensure, therefore, that your spelling is correct. So don't type a capital R yourself. Now it simply remains to run the code. So I'll just make sure my design is off. So if I click on one of those, so let's see, I'll click on this one for a change, take the design off, and now I'm ready to run the code. If I click that, you'll see it puts the word simple, which corresponds to that bit of text there, and you'll see that range A1 here, A1 corresponds to the top left cell. Value is a property. As I'll say, we'll talk about those later, but in fact it still works if you delete that for the moment, because it's what we call the default property, but we'll talk about that later. So you might just as well have typed that in. I'll change that text to something else, and then run the code again, and you can see that it runs, and so there you are. You've just written your first VBA program. So what I'll do now is close the VBE and click that. Now, if you like, they're two separate sort of applications, the Excel and they're quite independent. So if I close the VBE, of course, Excel doesn't close. But how do I get it back? There are a few ways. One is, I think I use this one more than any, if I right-click on that and choose View Code. So there you go, that's one way of getting it back. I'll close that. Another way, I don't use it very much for some reason or others, at the top left up here, click on Visual Basic, and that gives you your VBE. What else can we do? We can do an Alt F11 as well. So if I'm in my Excel, I'll make sure I'm in my Excel window, and now I'll do Alt and press the F11 key at the same time, and you see it toggles into my VBE. When I say toggle, if I press it again, it'll come back. Well, if it's covered up, it'll be more impressive. Let's just cover this up, and then if I toggle Alt F11, brings the Alt. So you see it switches between windows, which is quite nice actually. So let's talk a bit about what all these other bits and pieces are. I'll just close that up a bit. And sheet 1 here, you see, sheet 1 corresponds to sheet 1 of the Excel there. Now, if you like, it's the sheet, it's the code behind the Excel sheet 1. It's got the same name at the moment. By the way, if you don't have this window, which is the project window, let me just close it. And if we go to View, Project Explorer, and you'll notice you could do Control-R would get you the same thing. But if I do that, then you see that Project Explorer window, which can be quite handy. And then you can see that sheet corresponds to this bit of code we've got here. The other bits and pieces, for example, Command Button 1, that was the name of the object. We could change it and so on. But when we double-clicked in our Command Button, that came up automatically. This thing here, click, is an event. An event is something you do physically, like click the button or press a key and that sort of thing. And it's always separated by an underscore, but we'll talk about events a bit later on. Now, private means, we could actually do without it. It doesn't mean much to us at the moment, but I'll just bring that back again with the Control Z. But private means that it's private to a particular sheet, so that we've got sheet 1 and sheet 2, as I showed you before. You can have code behind them, and correspondingly we'll have sheet 1 and sheet 2 up here. And then private indicates that command button sub belongs to that particular sheet, and it's a matter of how it's accessed and so on, but that doesn't concern us at the moment. So I told you before, we've got sub and end sub. They go together like horses and carriage, so that sub always has an end sub associated with it, and it just gives the limits of your code. It bounds your code, if you like. Option explicit really is a way of checking. It's a spell checker, if you like. You could actually do without it. It won't make any difference to you at the moment. I'll explain what that's for later on. You may or may not have it, depending on how your options are set. And I'll just bring it back. Control Z will bring it back. You may or may not have it, and there's an option to make it appear automatically or not. And we'll talk about that later. So let me talk a bit more about editing your code. I'll close the VBE. Another way of getting to the code is to go back into the design mode by clicking this and then double clicking on that, and we'll get our command button code back again. You'll find that you'll be using that. You could use that. We'll go from double clicking on this to get your code, but then it's a bit of a nuisance. You have to switch the design off every time you want to run the code. So probably my preferred way would be go to right click and view code, but whatever you think's easiest for you. Now I'm going to edit this, so I'm going to highlight the whole thing. And when you're editing, don't worry about delete. You just press the number over the top of it, and that should give you the 2. Now let's see, we're out of design, so I can just click on the button, and that will just put the number 2. And you can tell it's a number because it's right aligned up here. If it was text, you'll notice before it was left aligned. Remember, text you must put inverted commas. Now what about if you make an error in your code and run the code? So I'll just make a deliberate error here and then run the code. Sub or function, that's not very helpful actually. It's the keyword is messed up, is what they're trying to say. So now if I just say OK, but you'll notice a yellow line. It's most important that you click this reset button to get rid of the yellow line. So I'll click on that, and we're back to normal. So we'll go now and type in here, fix it up. I might even do Control Z to fix it up. Okay, so then now, just to make sure it is still running, I'll put another number in here and run the code, and you'll see that it's back and working. But let's just do that again, because you must be careful to reset the code. Let's see what happens. I'll do that again. You click. Now, okay, that's all very well, but notice that if that code window is behind the Excel window, which if I click on the Excel window, you see, I'll do that now, and it sends the code window behind. Now, if I now click the command button, it looks as if the code's running, but it's not. So take a look at behind the scenes, and there you are. So the important thing is to click this thing here to make sure that your code is reset, and then you can fix up your code. And then, just for the sake of it, I'll put another number, and you can run the code, and you can see that your code is working. And lastly, I'll just rearrange the windows. I think you should try and rearrange the windows thus, so that the Excel window is small as possible. Then you can see both windows at the same time. So there you are. We've written and run some Excel VBA code.